that. Well, turning overseas, violence in Egypt today as voters made their ways to the polls. At least 11 were killed in clashes as Egyptians vote to decide the fate of a revised constitution. As Gary Lane reports, turnout was heavy despite opposition from the Muslim Brotherhood.
Members of Egypt's interim government describe the constitutional referendum as the dawn of a new day for their nation, one full of stability, justice, and free from terrorism. Egyptian Foreign Minister Nabil Fahmy talked to the press after casting his vote. "We are laying the building blocks for a new political foundation," he said, "one that will lead us to all working together and starting to build Egypt." But some are still bent on destroying Egypt in the interim. Despite tight security, this courthouse north of Cairo was nearly blown off its foundation Tuesday morning. The bombing occurred just yards away from one polling station. No one was killed in the courthouse blast, but at least 5 pro-Morsi demonstrators have reportedly died in clashes with security forces in areas of Upper Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood, recently labeled a terrorist organization by the government, has called for a vote boycott. Regardless, lines were long at many polling stations Tuesday morning, and a poll taken by the Basira Group last month indicated a heavy voter turnout. 76% of respondents said they plan to participate in the referendum. 74% of them said they'd vote yes. The head of the Coptic Orthodox Church, Pope Tawadros II, urged Christians to vote yes.
It will allow Egypt to go forward to a better future. There's a beautiful saying among Arabs, saying yes increases the blessing.
That's because the amended constitution guarantees freedom of worship and the building of churches.
Senior international correspondent Gary Lane joins us now with more. Gary, what does this mean for Egypt if the Constitution passes?
Well, it's expected to pass, but the question now is by how wide a margin? Will it pass by 60%, 70%? Obviously, if it passes by 70%, that's a big victory for the military, for the interim government. They'll say the people support what we did against the Muslim Brotherhood. And that's really what it will say. But it also says this is a rejection of the Muslim Brotherhood. And they're not popular in Egypt right now.
Well, what are some concerns over this revised constitution?
Mark, I think some of the concerns expressed concern the presidency and also the military. Some people say the presidency has too much power in this constitution. Also, the military will have the power to appoint the defense secretary. That's unusual. Generally, it's a civilian government that decides that. Also, things like detention, the length of detention is unlimited. So there are some real concerns there. But of course, you don't get everything you want. And this is much better than the Constitution they had before.
We've heard a lot about persecution of Christians in Egypt. What does the Constitution mean for Egypt's Christians?
It's a good thing for Egypt's Christians because now the Constitution recognizes their right to worship, their right to build churches, also for religious law to apply in their personal lives rather than the government's law. That's a good thing. But the key here is the mechanisms and the guarantee. The Constitution can guarantee it, but the mechanisms are not in place to help the Christians if there are violations. You can build a church now, but Muslims, Islamists may tear it down. Then what do? It's the same old, same old.
Well, what's next for Egypt?
Well, what's next is one more day of voting on this referendum, and then they'll count the ballots. If it's approved, then they'll move forward on this roadmap to a stable Egypt, which will mean 3 months from now either a presidential election or a parliamentary election. One will come before the other. 3 months later, the other one will follow. Has to be decided by the interim president.
Okay. Our senior international correspondent, Gary Lane. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, Mark.
Appreciate it as always. And for more of Gary's insights, make sure you check out his blog, The Global Lane, and you can find it at our website. Our website, of course, is cbnnews.com.